So today, in the next few minutes, I hope to share with you some wisdom about faith. That's where I'm going. But first, I just want to take a minute, if it's okay, I just want to take a minute and tell you about how my week went. And when I say how my week went, first of all, I want to tell you how my week was supposed to go. And some of you, this is all work related. Some of you have probably heard me say this before. I don't know how to say this delicately, but as often as impressed as people are that I don't use any notes during the sermon, there's a reason for that. It's because I can't be trusted to not read stuff. It's another reason why I take my glasses off too, is because if I had stuff in front of me to read, like even just like notes, like on cards or something, I'd read them. And I don't mean, by that I don't mean that's a bad thing, because I really appreciate people who are able to read something and communicate it with sincerity. When I read stuff, it sounds like I'm reading stuff. It doesn't sound like it's me, it sounds like I'm reading stuff. And then, frankly, I could have written it, or somebody else could have written it. Who knows, right? So first of all, there's one of the reasons. The other is how I get here. So how I get here, and again, some of you might have heard me say this before, but how I get here is, it's not like I don't plan ahead. And again, I really appreciate people who do, like people who can write their sermon a couple of weeks in advance. Fern, that's a gift. I can't do that. I know a minister in northern Alberta who has a gift for, like, he writes his sermons, I'm sure, like 3 or 4 weeks in advance, and then delivers them with every ounce of sincerity that he put into writing them. And that, to me, is amazing. It's a gift. I can't do that. There's a bunch of reasons why. One of which is I will go back and rewrite it several times, because I can never make up my mind. But if I say it in the moment, I can't take it back, right? Another is that, and again, I really appreciate people who write ahead of time. But one of the reasons I don't is because, frankly, what I say right now could be changed by something that happened last night. And I think that's important, because it means the message is in the context of where we are. So, for instance, today, it would be really easy to talk about faith and how much you should have it, completely ignoring the context of the fact that people are scared to go in a Walmart today because of what happened last week. And don't even start me on how many people don't want to go to garlic festivals either. Or just festivals. In fact, people are actually nervous in larger centers about gathering as a group. Unless, of course, you're one of those people who pointedly will. And then, again, you kind of have to wonder whether that's a faith issue or it's a challenge. Either way, it's a good thing, but it's a different world than simply I can't simply stand up in front of you and say, you all should have faith. You should. And just stop there. It doesn't fit where we're at. Because we need to acknowledge that we're in a world where we struggle. In fact, we struggle with faith in the sense of faith as gathering as a community of faith. I was thinking about, one of the things I was thinking about this week was that whole issue of community of faith. That's what we are, by the way. The new language in the church is that every what things we used to call congregations or missions or outreach communities, any of those, we're all communities of faith now. And I have to say I'm a little in the park with Nadia Boltz-Weber, who called her a congregation. It's the House of Saints and Sinners in Denver. She's moved on from there now, but they've kept the name because it acknowledges that we might be a community of faith, but you all might have some doubt too. So we're actually communities of faith and doubt. But hang on, no, wait. No, communities of faith is better because that's what we aspire to be, right? So that's our vision, is that we would be communities of faith. So that, in fact, is more faithful. Okay, all right, good. All right, so anyway, back to how the week goes. So at the beginning of the week, what I do is, I do plan ahead a little bit in that I have an idea of what I'm going to talk about. But at the beginning of the week, I read the scripture readings that are in the lectionary. Usually, sometimes we depart from the lectionary. But I read what's in the lectionary, and I read a few times, and I read stuff about it. I kind of decide early in the week what it is I want to talk about. And then over the week, I do lots of reading and thinking about it and formulate what I think I'm going to say this morning. And so by the time I get to the end of the week, if I have to do anything on, say, Friday or Saturday that isn't related to that, I have to rethink Sunday morning entirely on Saturday night late. Because I spent all week trying to get there, right? And then if you deviate from it, it's, but that can also happen earlier in the week, right? I can decide what I'm going to talk about on Monday, and then by Wednesday I've changed it to something else. By Thursday I've thought, oh, good Lord, what am I going to talk about? How am I going to say that? And Friday I'm like, oh, okay, I finally got, oh, that's a good thing. Nope, wait, okay. And then say Saturday you have to go, do a wedding for some really nice people, and then you're lost. So that was actually my week, by the way. I just described it right there. Because partly because faith is one of those things where as long as you don't talk about it, people are fine with it. But the moment you start to talk about it, you run into some problems. One of those issues is around the fact that faith isn't exclusive to religion, the way we use that word. I'm sure there were people who had faith in the Eskimos they were going to win. And that's what they would say. If you might have faith in somebody that they're going to do something for you. And you'd even use that word. Right? I would like to say right now that I have faith in all of you. I have faith in our community. I would like to say that. And I just did. But then the question comes, how do I follow through on that? What does that mean? Can you be more specific? Well, and in fact, the writer of Hebrews could in fact not be more specific. And the go-to definition, which is that opening verse of Hebrews, about having confidence, and I think confidence and conviction are the two words, right? Confidence and hope, and conviction in the things unseen. That never mentions God. So you could look at that and you could apply that to absolutely anything. Yes, you can. In fact, it was pointed out to me this week when I was quite ardently suggesting that faith only produces good things, that in fact, no. You can have faith in bad things because it's simply your conviction in it and your confidence in the hope and conviction in the things you haven't seen that is going to produce that. So it is entirely possible, and don't stone me for this because it's hard enough to make the words come out of my mouth. It's entirely possible that Donald Trump has faith in what he's doing. It is. It absolutely is. It's entirely possible. The thing about that, though, is that faith in doing, the thing about that is that when we start using the word that way, we're missing out on what was so important to the person writing Hebrews about not mentioning God in that sentence, that God is inherently in that sentence, in the hope and in the things unseen. Just because the G word isn't in there doesn't mean that God isn't there. And to me, that's the thing about hope. about faith is that it's the hope that is within you, and then how you express that in the possibility of all that is around you. So if you're as confused as I am, if you're confused now, this is how I was on Thursday when I had to write a blog and a column for the paper. And so what my blog and column for the paper was the first story that we told the kids when we did the Rock U children's program in Bashaw in July. It's a story about in the beginning, when all things were created, God gathered everybody in a big circle around a big rock and tried to tell everyone how and everything, how they're all connected through the big rock, and how the unicorn was the one smart enough to ask the questions about, well, what do you mean by that? What do you mean by connected? What do you mean by the big rock? And of course, what the unicorn was smart enough to realize, as everyone else edged closer to the big rock, was that God didn't mean the big rock. God meant the earth as the big rock. And the story connected to Lion King, obviously, and then we had the lion come out and do the bit about everything that you see is connected and all that kind of thing. And so the way of telling the story connected with the kids on the level of being, remember in Lion King, the big rock? The Pride Rock was what it was called. Come on, people, you must have seen Lion King. No? You have to see Lion King. You can see the new one, I don't care. The old one's better. But so it connected with the kids on the song, The Circle of Life, and all of that. And so I packaged up that story in less than 900 words so that it could be my blog, and because I had nothing to say about faith at that point that I could put down on paper. You realize, of course, that as I've come to this morning, that story is also about faith. It is. It is, because here's the thing. Faith is a really confusing thing to talk about because it doesn't stand by itself. It can't stand by itself. Faith isn't just about hope in your confidence in hope or conviction in the things unseen. Even the writer of Hebrews then had to go on to say, this is how Abraham interpreted it. And by the way, the verses we left out only just mentioned a bunch of other people from the Old Testament that, you probably might not remember their stories, but the odds are really good you remember Abraham, right? You remember that Abraham, God called to Abraham and said, you have to go here. And Abraham it was kind of like, and God said, well, you have to go here because you will be the father of generations. And the generations that follow you will be like the stars in the sky. Oh, and by the way, your wife, who's like 100 years old, is going to have a baby. And it all happens, right? And so Abraham and Sarah had faith in God and went out and did that. They went to the new place, and it all happened. Of course, we know that in hindsight. Abraham didn't know it at the time. But that's why we tell the story, is that he didn't need to know it in hindsight. He believed it. He could envision it. He could see it, even though it wasn't there. And that's the thing about faith, is that it's not just about being able to see what isn't there. It's about being able to make the possibility that is around you, make that happen. Right? So it isn't just about, I envision that this is where I want to get to. It's then having to be part of making that happen in the context in which you are. So look around you, because that's where you will find the things that will fulfill the faith that you have. It's be the change that you want to see happen. You can see it. And getting there requires your engagement of where you are. Faith, faith is, I know we use this faith in action, faith in action, we say this all the time. I don't think we need to say faith in action because I think it's an action verb. It's like Jesusing. It is the action. You cannot simply say, I have faith, and leave it at that. There must be a way that that is expressed. That's how you attain the vision, whether it happens in your lifetime or not. Right? Martin Luther King Jr. famously, I have seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but someday you will. He could see it. Think of all of the other famous people. And actually, you know what? It doesn't even have to be famous people. People you know who are examples of faith. How are they examples of faith to you? Simply because they said, I have faith. Or because their faith was expressed. You see how this connects to my story of the week thing? At the beginning of the week, I have faith that by Sunday morning I'm going to be able to say something relatively coherent that might be meaningful. Whether that actually happens or not, I have faith that it's going to. And then I spend the rest of the week trying to make that happen. And sometimes it happens relatively easy and in a straightforward manner. In other ways, I've taken on a whole bunch of different journeys and gone in a whole bunch of different directions. But in fact, that too is part of the process of faith. It's getting here on a Sunday morning. Sometimes it's a struggle. It is. Look at the world around you. It is difficult sometimes to find faith in anything. But as I'm saying that, faith in anything, the one thing that it's not hard to find faith in is God. Because God is around you. God is in the things that are around you. God is in all of the things, and this was a part of the story about the Pride Rock thing with the kids, is that God is there. You may not be able, we as adults often do this thing where I don't see where God is in this. That's because you're an adult who's had life experience that has led you to not see. That's why children can see. They can see God because they can see those wonderful things around. Their sense of wonder is so great. It's all new. They haven't learned not to like it yet. They haven't learned to be afraid yet. They haven't learned that somehow is wrong because somebody told them it is. They haven't learned to worry about what they look like because someone has told them how they should look. They're not worried about whether or not their friends are a particular culture or color because no one has told them that they should worry about that. Yet, sadly, we need to be able to see not just the vision of what we want to have, but how we can see God in the world around us that will lead us there. If that vision, if that sense of wonder, if that sense of hope, if all of that comes from your heart, it will lead you to good. I truly believe that because we are created in the image of God. Good is what is in your heart, in the deepest part of your heart. So there's another thing I know about faith, which helps me to be able to come in the door this morning and stand here and talk, even though I actually was really doubting whether I had anything intelligent to say. And that is, God has faith in you and me. God has faith in you. Right at the very end of that reading from Hebrews, God has faith in you. God is home. God is our home. And it would be really easy to just leave that at, I see what you mean by that, because I've heard you say before, we come from God and we return to God. So clearly, we go home to God. And yes, truly we do, but God is also here because this too is our home. And this is how I know that God has faith in me and you. look at the wonder that is around you. If we could see more clearly the wonder that is around us not just in, I don't mean just creation, look at the people around you. They are wonders too. Not just because they're the cutest babies ever. Everyone around you is a wonder. Look at the world around, it's a wonder. How do we even move? Sure, we can explain that scientifically. And I see there's a new theory around how I don't know if you saw this in the news this week too, but there's a new theory around what might have been before the Big Bang. So scientists have there's new thoughts around that and everything. That's great because God's in that wonder too. If God has faith in you and me, what's grammatically correct there? You and I? You and me. If God has faith in you and me, how can we not have faith? How can we not have vision to see and the will to make it so? Well, maybe it's because we look around us and we see the context of the world in which we live and we go, oh. And suddenly we have doubts. And once again, let me remind you, since all of this is connected, let me remind you of the two words that Jesus uses most frequently in the Bible, which is don't be afraid. To be fair, one of them's a contraction. It could be three words. Do not be afraid. Okay. Don't be afraid. What ought to be maybe connected to that is have faith. Look at the world around you. Look in your heart and see what is your vision of that. So this is sometimes, I think, what happens. This is what happens with congregations. That's the part we miss. We like to say we have faith. We like to say we have faith. But how are we putting that to work? How are we living that faith? And sometimes living that faith means taking some risks. I talked about this a little bit more recently with churches, for instance, that sell their buildings, or churches that embark on a big project, not knowing whether or not they actually have the funds to do that, but they're going to make it happen. It's a leap of faith. It's looking at what's around us and connecting it to the vision that we have. That's faith. And that faith is a two-way street because God is in all of that is around us that will help us accomplish our vision. That's God's faith in us. Where we are represents God's faith in us. So, I have faith as I sort of move myself through the week. I have faith that come Sunday, I'm going to be able to say something that's meaningful. I engage all of those resources, all of those stories. Some of them lead me in different directions. Some of them lead me all over the map. And sometimes on Sunday morning, when it comes to what I'm going to say, I sometimes am all over the map. But I have faith that somewhere in that is something that's meaningful. I have faith that as we gather as a community to what we call worship or a service or whatever language we use around that, there is something in that. Whether it's a line in a hymn, a prayer, the person sitting next to you, the fact that you're even sitting here this morning, there will be something there that will connect with you, that will be a spark for you, that will be meaningful for you. Finding the thing that's meaningful is one of the hardest things about faith. What is meaningful? And this is where we go back to the very first questions that you heard this morning. What is meaningful to you about this? What is it that inspires your faith? Where is it you think your faith wants to take you? Because it's not enough to say, I have faith. It's not enough to listen to somebody talk at you far too long and about random things that might connect with you about faith. It's not enough to sing the hymn or say the prayer or listen to the words. Whether that's scripture or not, it's not enough. You need to ask yourself those questions too and find the way that your faith takes you forward.